Hello, writers. We have got Laurie Calkhoven with us today. Hello, Laurie.
Hi.
Well, I want to introduce you a bit to our writers, and then we're going to hop right into some character development. So this is going to be a great session for you writers. But let me tell you a bit about Laurie. Laurie is an Author Accelerator certified book coach, and she loves nothing more than capturing young readers and inspiring them to love books, reading, and writing as much as she does. From more than 15 early readers to laugh out loud chapter books and historical novels that bring the wacky facts of history to light, she's published more than 50 books for children and teens. Congratulations on that, by the way. That is amazing.
Thanks.
And she coaches children's novelists who are dedicated to improving their craft. She's had experience with all genres of children's fiction, including mysteries, fantasies, thrillers, and historical novels. She often uses meditation to help uncover character and conjure scenes, and has taught those techniques to writers and illustrators at the Highlights Foundation and at regional SCBWI conferences. Prior to becoming a full-time writer, Laurie spent many years working in book publishing. She was the founding editor of the Teen People Book Club and was an executive editor with the Scholastic Book Clubs, which is just awesome all around. So many great experiences that you've had in publishing.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. Yes. Yeah.
So Laurie's been so gracious to come and chat with me today about some character development because, as I mentioned in her bio, Laurie does a lot of classes and meditation classes around developing character. So maybe just for the writers here to provide a little context, maybe let's first start by talking about why it is important to make sure that we spend time developing our main characters.
Well, character development is key no matter what age group you're writing for, because readers, for the most part, read for character. Even in really plot-driven books, it's the character that draws them in and the character's problem and their attempts to solve it. So as writers, we need to know those characters inside and out. They won't be three-dimensional. They won't step off the page for the reader if they're not three-dimensional for us. And of course, we convey that in dialogue and action and exposition. But first, we really need to know them.
Yeah, yeah. So when we're dealing, I mean, since you have written across a lot of different age categories here of KidLit, I mean, some of the books are going to be shorter in length and perhaps simpler. And as we get into the older age groups, we have more complexity and
Right.
perhaps more going on. How in depth how in depth do writers need to get along the way here as we're looking at the progression of age categories?
Yeah, I don't think the depth of characterization really changes from chapter books to middle grade to YA. There are big differences, but one of the main differences between chapter books, middle grade, and YA is the level of the story problem.
Mhm.
So in middle grade or YA, your character might be dealing with the loss of a loved one or a family member. They might be falling in love for the first time. They may be trying to figure out their place in the world. And it's the process of watching them solve that story problem that the reader gets caught up in. The same is true in chapter books, although in chapter books and early readers, the story problem is much different. The story problem is my classmate going to invite me to their birthday party? Are my parents still going to love me when the new baby comes? Am I going to lose the class pet when I bring it home for the weekend? The story problems are much simpler, but to those readers, to those characters and those readers, those story problems are just as big. They're just as important. So if you're writing for second graders, if a problem is if it matters to a second grader, it should matter to you as the writer.
Yeah.
We can't look at it as simple. It's only a second grader. It's only a little kid. If it's important to them, it has to be important to you as the writer. But the other big difference between middle grade and YA and chapter books is the idea of transformation and change. In middle grade and YA, we expect the character to transform in some way as they solve their story problem. We want to see that character change in the end. In chapter books, that's not necessarily true.
Mm.
Most chapter books are written in series. Kids at this age are really building their reading muscles. So they're just beginning to read to learn as opposed to learning to read. So they're using the books for a different purpose, but they're still struggling a bit with their reading. And so that's why these series are so important to kids this age and why they get so caught up in them, because there's the excitement of a new problem in every book, but there's also the familiar. The characters are familiar and the way they approach their problems is familiar. So in chapter books, you don't have that same transformation that you would expect in a middle grade or YA novel. Characters might learn something about themselves or solve a story problem and learn something in that way, but the characters are basically the same from book to book. Jada Jones, Ivy and Bean, Jasmine Taguchi, even my own Roosevelt Banks, they are basically the same from book to book. It's just that they are facing a new problem.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about chapter books with the series, as you're talking about, is your character has to be strong enough to actually sustain more than one book as well. Like they have to be interesting enough to keep the writer invested for all those books.
That's true. The writer and the reader.
Yeah.
You think of some characters like, like Fancy Nancy. You know, she's in picture books, she's in early readers, she's in chapter books. I wouldn't be surprised if one day she becomes a middle grade star. You know, but there are some characters that just capture kids' attention and they just want to keep reading about them. And I don't know how you set out to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, writers I know who've done that, it's almost it's like it's magic, it's kismet, it's, you know, it happens and they don't quite know how, but they're along for the ride. So that's the hope that our characters would take on those larger than life roles in kids' lives. And of course those characters are all larger than life when you think about it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Very
climate,
good.
yeah.
So when writers get feedback on their stories, it's not uncommon for the feedback to be this character is underdeveloped or it needs to be stronger in, certain ways, but it's not uncommon for that feedback to be based around the character. So it's a common problem for writers of all experience levels and of all genres and categories. So what might be some warning signs if I'm working on a book here and I'm thinking, how do I know if if I've done enough work to develop this character? What might be some warning signs in my writing that maybe I've left some things open that shouldn't be open?
Right. It's hard to tell. I mean, I think it's hard for us to tell, reading our own stories. It's easier to have other people look at them and give us that feedback. And I was one of those writers who got, back when editors and agents used to send rejection letters, of course they don't anymore. That was always the feedback I got, that my plots were really good, but my characters were wooden. And I wasn't quite sure what to do about it. But I think if your character needs to be three-dimensional both for you and the reader. They can't be three-dimensional for the reader if they're not for you. So if you can't imagine sitting down across the breakfast table with your character, if you can't imagine going on a trip to a museum or a park with them, and just off the record, as an aside, it can be really fun to go on a field trip with your characters.
Mm.
It's best not to talk to them out loud, but people will look at you funny, but then who cares? If you want to talk to your characters, talk to your characters. But if you can't imagine doing those things with your character, then your reader can't either. So they need to be three-dimensional for you before they're three-dimensional for the reader. And I always thought I was doing that, and of course I wasn't. And I was in a class and I was meditating and I was thinking about my character, and I just got another rejection where I was told my characters were wooden and my plot was great. And I was meditating and the thought just kept coming in that I couldn't do this, that I was going to fail. I was never going to be good enough to do this. And here I'd been working in publishing and reading books for all these years and I still couldn't write one, and what's going on here? And somehow in that meditation, I really connected with my character's insecurity, my own insecurity, and I realized that was a connection we had, me and my character. And I sat down and I started to write, and I really got me in touch with a different part of him that I didn't already know. And that was, if I had been in a cartoon, a light bulb would have gone off over my head, because I thought, wow, I need to be meditating about my characters. I took my first meditation class in high school. I took a transcendental meditation class, and I had been meditating off and on for many years. And I live in New York City, so I was lucky enough to have lots of, like, the New York Open Center and the Omega Center are here. And just prior to COVID, two little meditation centers popped up in my neighborhood. So I've had access to a lot of different kinds of meditation, and I've tried a lot of different things. And I realized I needed to be meditating to get to know my characters. And I made some notes before I started, and of course I've lost my place because I was
Oh, that's okay. It's fascinating.
so
So, no, go ahead.
I created a series of writing prompts that I could use in meditation to get to know my characters in a deeper way. And some of them came from writing craft books. Some of them came from just my reading. I was reading John Green's The Fault in Our Stars the first time, and there's that beautiful scene between Hazel Grace and Augustus where they're talking about the swing set of tears.
Mm.
And I got a writing prompt out of that. So I've just sort of over the years collected a lot of different writing prompts, and I use them to get to know my characters, and not just my main character, but all of my characters.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that kind of work before I sit down to write my first draft, or if you're an Author Accelerator client or coach, before I sit down to do the blueprint. I do a lot of work on my character to get to know them in that way. And I do believe that these meditations have led me from being an unpublished writer to a published one. I'm always going to be better at plot than I am at character. It's just the way my brain works, but it really has helped me a great deal.
No, I love that. And I love that you're sharing your own transformation in this, because everybody can't be strong in everything. You're right. So in another conversation, I've already spoken with our friend Erin Radnicki, and she's very good about nature and things like, incorporating nature in stories. And that is not something that I am good at. And so, working with someone like Erin would be a good way to complement my own strengths. And here you are realizing that this is a need you have. And so you've developed a solution to overcome that. And I love that. So writers, Laurie is going to be very gracious with us here for a minute. Laurie teaches classes about the character development, and she will often lead meditation workshops, either independently through her own coaching site or sometimes with other writing organizations. And Laurie's going to give us a little taste here of the kind of prompts that she uses to help to develop her characters. And we realize that some of you might be in a situation right now where you're listening to this conversation or watching this conversation, and you might not literally be able to pull out a pen and paper to jot down your ideas. So with that in mind, Laurie's going to give us some prompts, and then she'll let us know, like, you can pause the recording here if you want to continue working on that prompt. Did I get it right, Laurie?
Yes. I'm going to lead a meditation and give you a writing prompt, but we will pause twice for you to, and then we'll come back. I think it will make sense as we do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will turn it over to you then.
Okay. So what I normally do is I normally meditate for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I do a visualization in which I bring my character to me. This will make sense when I do it. And then, because I think it's important to be surprised by the writing prompt, I have writing prompts written down on index cards, and I put them face down on my desk. And when it's time to write, I turn one over and start to write. And I do find that this kind of writing works best if I'm writing by hand. There's something about the connection between your subconscious and your hand that's different than your subconscious and the keyboard. So I find it's better if it's uncomfortable for you to write by hand, then by all means use your keyboard.
Laurie, can I ask a quick follow-up to that too? Is it have you had people maybe verbally process? Like, if there are people who sort of talk it out, Or do
Oh,
you find it's helpful, like the literal act of writing?
I personally find the literal act of writing helpful. If someone is more verbal and yeah, I mean, as long as they're not in a group setting where
Right.
everyone's meditating with them, there's no reason why they can't just turn on the record button on their phone and start talking.
Okay.
Yeah, that would work too. Yeah. That's a good thought. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to meditate now, and I will tell you to pause the video while we continue. But for right now, just get comfortable in your chair and rest your hands lightly in your lap, palms up if you can, and close your eyes. And just breathe in and breathe out, and allow your breath to find a comfortable rhythm. Just connect with your body for a moment and notice if you're holding tension anywhere in your body, and either try and breathe into that spot or wiggle that spot to release that tension. And just invite your body to relieve any stress. As you inhale and exhale, allow yourself to become more and more relaxed. And whenever you find yourself distracted by thoughts, body sensations, noises, just simply let that go and come back to your breath. And we're going to do this for 10 minutes. And this would be the place where you pause the video. Okay, welcome back. Keep your eyes closed and keep up your deep meditative breathing. And I want you to envision a warm, relaxing light over the top of your head. And on your next deep breath in, allow that light to come down and reach the crown of your head. And as you inhale and exhale, this warm, relaxing, soothing light is going to come down over your forehead. It's going to reach the top of your ears, then your mouth, and then your chin. If you're feeling at all claustrophobic, this light can be as big as you need it to be. On your next deep breath in, allow that light to come down and reach your shoulders. Just allow yourself to be soothed by this warm, relaxing light as it cascades down over your body and reaches your hips and your knees and your ankles and your feet. Just allow yourself to enjoy this for a moment, just being soothed by this light. And notice in the distance your character walking toward you. And as they come closer and closer, you'll notice more details about them. The clothes they're wearing, maybe the way they swing their arms when they walk. Are they holding something in their hand? Just notice more and more details. You'll notice their facial expression. Is there something in their pockets? Just allow your character to come to you. And they're 10 feet away, and then 5. And now allow the character to step into the light with you and come and stand by your side. And if it's comfortable for you, your character can step into your body. If that isn't comfortable, they can just stay at your side. Your character is going to tell you something about themselves that you didn't already know. Your character has a really important memory about a parent. It might be their father or their mother or a parental figure, but your parent has a really strong memory. I mean, your character has a really strong memory about this parent. It could be a good memory or a bad memory, but it's something that divided their lives into a before and an after. It's something that changed the way they think about themselves and the world. What is this memory? When you're ready, you can open your eyes and begin writing. And this is where, again, you would pause the video. Okay, welcome back. I hope that worked for you.
Okay, so that's a lot of It's so interesting how you approach this and how you use this. I assume then you would continue with additional types of questions, whether it's you pulling, you mentioned you have cards
Yes.
sometimes that are available for you to use as prompts.
I do. If I'm on a roll, I might turn over another card and start writing again. I do actually find it very helpful to meditate in between the different writing prompts,
Sure.
because it helps to come to stillness and sort of let that one meditation go and come back to a new one. So when I'm working on a new story with new characters, I might meditate 3 or 4 times a day. And these meditations are like the parent meditation in that they're designed to teach me something new about their character, to add to their texture and their richness, but not necessarily to end up in the book. I mean, often
Right.
the meditations I do don't end up in my books at all, although that one parent one did it. I wrote a novel set in World War II called Michael at the Invasion of France, and his parent memory actually turned out to be his inner journey. It turned out to be really important for the entire novel, but often it's just adding texture to the character. And I have a couple of different ways to bring my character to me. And also I've created scene meditations now. And when I was leading meditations for the Highlights Foundation during the pandemic, we had a regular Monday meditation. And after a while, after like 6 or 8 months, people started coming to me and asking for, can you create a meditation for this or that? So I have a whole list of meditations now that I use for different purposes. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've mentioned using it as a way to like pre-plan while you are developing a story idea. Do you also use it if you're in progress with a story, but maybe you're in a place where you're stuck?
I do use it often when I'm stuck. I use it sometimes the secondary characters, I don't do as many meditations to get to know them as I do for my main character. And sometimes if I don't understand how a secondary character would behave in a scene, I might do some meditations around them. I have a couple of different scene meditations that I use, and I usually use before writing the big scenes, the big, keynote
Yeah.
scenes, the plot points and the climax. So I use them often before writing a big scene. And also I have a revision meditation I do that
Fantastic.
helpful for revision. Yeah. So I just keep finding reasons to meditate.
And writers, we just wanted to let you know, so Laurie, maybe you could talk a bit about your website. I mean, you are a book coach, you are a writer, and you are a teacher. If writers are interested in learning more about how you do these meditation, whether it's prompts or classes or those kinds of things that you offer, could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, if you go to my website, which is lauriecalkhoven.com, I leave you can send me an email and I will send you an audio of another character meditation, a different one than the one we did today. I am in the gearing up to start a newsletter, which will include information about meditation. So you can again send me your email and I will include you on that list. And I do lead the occasional at-home free Zoom writing retreat day, which includes meditation. So we just did one that went really well. So I'm looking forward to doing more. So again, go to my website, send me an email, and I will add you to my meditation list. And you can read about my coaching there. You can read about my books there, my writing, and yeah, see a baby picture of me. Lots of things you can do on my website. Yeah.
That's fun. And we will have a link to that in the show
Okay.
notes, so it won't be a problem for people to find you. So,
Right.
Laurie, thank you so much for sharing this with us and this different aspects of writing that we probably don't hear about from a lot of different people. I think it's one of the things that makes you unique as a writing teacher. And I just want to thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I love this. I love teaching this. It's my favorite thing to teach. So yeah. And I also lead meditations for writing groups if your writing group wants to do.
Oh, good idea. Yeah, like a critique group or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Laurie, and writers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.